so yeah, tea bags, and so so they basically just send the moringa to um, um, to Nashville. There's another group that makes tea called Three Mountains Tea in Rwanda. They also send stuff, and we combine the product. We add the moringa to the Three Mountains Tea, package it, and sell it, and then split the money among the two women's cooperatives. Oh, great. Oh, I love hibiscus. Hibiscus tea is my favorite. I love hibiscus tea. That would be great. That's why I would love to get you in touch with Becca. Also, there's an amazing man named Nicholas Hitamana. He's a botanist in Rwanda. He runs an organization called Ikarisa. I would love to connect you with Nicholas. He basically started it after the Rwandan genocide, and he gathered women together. And being a botanist, he helped them basically become geranium farmers. And they use the essential oil for the geranium, and then Thistle Farms uses that for insect repellent. And it's amazing insect, and it's non-toxic, and it's pure natural, and it works. Like, I have a customer. It works like, and Nicholas is the most gentle, brilliant person, and it's been so healing for these women. And now we're a generation past the genocide, but of course psychologically everything is still there. But it's helping women, not only get economic empowerment for themselves, but then also pass it along to girls, pay girls' school fees, do things like that. So yeah. So no, let's connect with each other, and then I really want to. Would be nice. We should open this conversation up to more people. So let me say your name for me so I can hear you. Esme, what's the whole name? Esme Chombo. Test. Are we about ready, Keith? Okay, it's 8:59, but we're going to start just a hair early, so by the time I'm done talking, we're ready to go. Welcome to the forum, everyone. Welcome everyone here. Welcome everyone who is watching and joining us online. It is an absolute. First of all, my name is Mike Kinman. My pronouns are he, him. I'm the rector here at All Saints Church. Great to see you all here this morning. And it is our absolute honor to welcome our guest, Her Excellency Esme Chombo, who is the ambassador of the Republic of Malawi to the United States. And the first thing I need to do is I need to shout out our good friend, Don Thomas, Dr. Don Thomas, who is the whole reason that this is happening, and the work, Don, that you have been doing for so long in Malawi and other places, but a lot in Malawi has been inspirational, and I know that we have involved a lot of people in this congregation, and I'm hoping this is just sort of the next stage in that process. So can we give Don a hand and recognize Don for all the great work that he's doing? And so and you've told me to call you Esme, but I have to at least call you Your Excellency once, because it's so appropriate. You have been the ambassador to the United States since 2020, January 2022, January 1, 2022. So I just want to let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about what your passions are, and what do we need to know about you, Esme?
Thank you. I think firstly, I just want to say thank you for inviting me here. It's a great honor and a privilege as well. I would like to say that I never dreamed that I'll be in this circle of diplomacy, because I was a judge before retiring. And so a few months before my retirement, that's when I was told that I had been appointed as an ambassador. And I honestly was asking questions because in all my dreams, I never thought that I would be in this circle. But I always believe that God has got the last word in our lives. When I was appointed, I felt like saying no, but I said yes because my husband said, no, we are saving the country. So I was wondering as well how I was going to continue with my passion because I love women and I love children. And maybe many of you may not know, but Malawi is one of the poorest countries in the world. And so when I was on the bench, my passion was to go out and serve women by telling them or helping them to understand what the law says, how they can protect themselves, because most of the women in Malawi are not educated. And most of them are also, I don't want to call them peasant farmers, but they are small-scale farmers. And most also are, family-headed, single-headed families. So it's the mother and the children who are mostly fending for themselves. So it has been my passion to try and empower these women, empower them so that they know what the law is. In a case of divorce, property sharing and so on, what they can do. But also domestic violence, which is a big issue. Sexual violence for the children and so on. So that was my passion. And so being moved to come to the embassy, I said, this is going to kill my vision. But little did I know that, I would meet people like Dawn, who would introduce me to Ida. Ida is a Malawian girl. She's doing her project in Malawi. I never knew anything about her.
Talk a little about Ida and her work.
Okay, Ida is this girl, I call her a girl. She overwhelms me with her energy, with her passion, and she is doing work empowering women mostly, calling out girls that have been forced into forced marriages, and most of them are teens. And so she is bringing them back, empowering them, sending them to school. She has one of the most amazing sustainability project because she has volunteers. Now, in Malawi, you pay your volunteers. But for Ida, it is the volunteers who pay to become members of her project. And so they come in, they pay, either in money or in kind. They provide their services, they provide food for the children, so they do all sorts of things. And so I was, amazed that the same passion that I had, God is showing me that no, it's not where you are, but it's who you trust that can make a difference in your life. So I'm believing that God is leading me this way, because now I have been talking about Ida. I've been telling people, sending people to her place so that we can replicate what she is doing. Because if we can do that, Malawi will change. Malawi will see a difference. Malawi will see they don't have to depend on the donor, because this is from grassroots. And so if development starts from grassroots, it grows up, and then you find that it is affecting more and more lives. It is mostly the grassroots level women that affect my life more, and the children.
Yeah, and you've identified something that not only is your clear passion and a justice issue, but there have been so many studies done that if there is one thing that you want to do to help increase development and increase standard of living, it is empower girls and women, because you are literally setting free the gifts of more than 50% of your population.
Yes.
So I'm interested in the girls' education. Can you talk about what that's like in Malawi? Are there barriers to it? How are things changing? Give us kind of a snapshot of that.
Traditionally, it's the boy child who is, valued most. The girl child, mostly, maybe a parent or a family will say, well, if we have money, let's send the boy to school because the girl is going to get married. And when she gets married, she is going to support the family of the man. But the boy will bring the girl here, and so he's going to support this family. But now, people are beginning to realize that the girl child is just as important. And that if we can empower the girl child, it means that we are, actually, I always say that if the world realized that the woman is an equal partner as God ordained in Genesis, then the world is going to utilize this rare resource so that development spreads further, development spreads more. Because, and excuse me, please, I find women to be big thinkers.
So do I. So yeah, I agree completely.
Whether they're educated or not educated.
Amen.
But God has endowed the woman with a certain sense of, wisdom, which when we use it, we find that things are working well.
And that's actually scriptural too. Sophia
Yes.
is the personification of wisdom in Holy Scripture, and Sophia is the divine feminine.
Yes.
So,
yes.
I think there is, besides all of our incredible experience with the truth of what you're saying, it's in Scripture as well. So how have you seen the results in focusing and trying to encourage girls and women's education?
Right. It has been both formal and informal education.
Okay.
Let me talk firstly on the informal side. On the informal side, we've had women that are now doing agriculture, which is feeding the families. And we are now starting, I don't know what to call them here, but they're called village banks.
Okay.
Women gather together, they put their monies together, they loan each other that money at small interest.
It's kind of like a credit, what we call a credit union, a neighborhood credit union.
Yes,
It's sort of like that, but like a cooperative bank.
Yes, exactly. But these are informal.
Okay.
And with that, they are building houses, they are buying cows, they are buying goats for their own livelihood, they are paying fees for their children. Mm-hmm. And now the girl child is also going to school because people are realizing that if this girl goes to school, then she is going to be, an example, because we are lacking models. Mm-hmm. I would take again the example of Ida.
Right.
When she wanted to go to school, the chief in her area, who is a man, said, you cannot because you're just a girl. But Ida is one girl who is stubborn.
To say the least, yes.
Yeah. And she went to school. She brought her project home. The chief was adamant that he wasn't going to have her bring the project home, but she decided to bring it anyway. She talked to her villagers. Some decided to not believe her, but about 65 people believed her. Together they started building this project. And now, even the chief that was saying, you can't have it here because you're a girl, sits at her feet to learn how to read and write.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And because she's doing this village bank with the people, with the women in the village, they are educating their children. She took them one time to the bank to go bank their money, and she realized they cannot read and write. She started classes for them. So we are looking at a revolution that has started. That's why I'm saying if we can replicate it in the villages of Malawi, come 5 years down the line, we're going to see a different Malawi altogether.
Well, and that sounds wonderful, and I'm also aware that all of these wonderful things are happening now that you're helping and Ida's helping happen, and yet you were a girl way before any of this, and you somehow not only got educated, you became a judge and an how did you do that?
It's a long story.
We got a few minutes, so.
I'm number 4 in a family of, well, I would say the first family. We are many, but number 4 because my mother died after me. And I have one brother and 3 girls, 3 of us girls. So when we were going to school, we used to face a lot of, pushback. I was interested in science. When I got to, I think here you call it junior high. When I got to, we call it Form 2. I happened to ask a question in class one day, my science teacher. I said, "Sir, what's an atom?" He said, "An atom is an atom. You are very naughty. Get out of my class. After all, you are just a girl." I went out of that class, never came back. I turned my back on sciences, and I turned my heart to arts. And that's how I became a lawyer, because then I was just studying arts. But I think a lot depends on the teacher. What does the teacher say to the students? A lot of girls in school have been told, you can never make it. This is a male, section. So don't go that way. But I had a father also who was very, very encouraging. And he's the one who, after I came back home and I reported what happened, he said, "Anyway, now you can study these subjects and become a lawyer." So from the age of 10, he encouraged me, and that's how I became a lawyer much later.
That's amazing. Well, again, it shows both the positive difference someone like your father can make, and also the negative difference that someone like that teacher can make.
Yes.
And so you became a lawyer. So let's talk about the law.
Okay.
During your lifetime, during your career, what changes have you seen in Malawian law? Is Malawian the way to say, okay, in Malawian law that have benefited women? Are things getting better?
Yes, they're getting better. I think as a court, firstly, even before some of the law had been changed, we decided to be progressive. By being progressive is to make law that may not be there on paper, but which, sometimes there's what we call a lapse, a lacuna. So you go into that and you see what you can do to make a judgment that is in favor of the women.
Can you give me an example of something like that?
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll give an example of a case that, or some cases that I did. Mm-hmm. The law in Malawi, I think I'll give both criminal and civil case. It used to say that on the criminal side, that if a woman is going to prove that she has been sexually assaulted, there must be corroboration. Now, corroboration meant that someone else saw what happened. And for a long time, women were suffering because normally sexual offenses don't happen in the middle of the street. Right. They happen behind closed doors. So for a long time, women were suffering because they just couldn't prove it. And from, I think someone, I can't remember the name, years and years ago, used to say that women cannot be trusted, so their evidence is not trusted in court. And that's how that practice came in, that there must be corroboration. So I looked at what was happening, and I said, well, if the woman has evidence that tells it all, why should she not be trusted? And so we started looking at incidences of the distress on the woman, her evidence, did she report to someone, although sometimes as a result they don't. Some may report years after because of the shame, the stigma, and so on. But we started looking at little snippets that add up to corroboration. And so now the law has changed, and we are saying corroboration just depends on the woman herself, the evidence that she gives, and if there's something that connect with what she is saying with something that is outside of her. So that was on the criminal side. On the civil side, because many women don't work, on divorce, the law was that you have to prove that you contributed financially. Let's say if it's a house, then you contributed. Then we looked at how many women at home are just contributing towards the well-being of the home, non-financial contribution.
Right.
So then we came up with a ruling. Bearing child, that's a contribution. Washing your shirts, cooking for the man, creating an enabling environment so that he can go to work and come back. That's a non-financial contribution. So since then, the law has changed and many women are benefiting as a result.
Well, so first of all, thank you. Thank you for spending your life working on this. It makes such a huge difference. Another thing I'm struck by is what you're describing in Malawi. There are versions of that here in the United States, even still. We were talking a bit before we officially started. I'm struck by the trajectory that you are all on, which is wonderful, which is giving women more and more rights. And I shouldn't even say giving rights. Women have rights. Removing the barriers that keep women from exercising their rights. And it feels like in America, we're going in the opposite direction. We're rolling back and putting up more barriers for women. And so, I really wonder, I love looking at the work that you all are doing and say, we actually have a lot in this country to learn from you and your passion to keep pushing forward, because we're sort of almost in a defensive battle right now for many people's rights in this country. As an ambassador now to the United States, how do you find, especially given that this is your passion, how do you find working with the U.S. government on issues of women's empowerment, women's education, women's rights?
I must say, firstly, that the American environment is complicated.
Yeah. Please say more about that.
Well, maybe that goes a long way to, because of the, complex environment, cultures, and traditions that the Americans have. Before I became ambassador, I used to think that the American system is just as simple as my system in Malawi. But I think because we were colonized by the British, here it's different. The law is different. But I find that I think the one thing that is different between America and Malawi, we tend to be consistent.
Keep going. I'm agreeing with you, nodding my head. Yeah.
While here, I find that what may be true today will change, maybe 2 or 3 years down the line. We are slow to change. After all, the British are slow to change, and so maybe
we have our roots in the Episcopal Church and the British. We know all about slow to change.
Yeah.
So yes.
So I think we tend to be a little more consistent than here. So sometimes what may be true today, you find that 2 days, 3 days time is completely different. And so you have to keep on learning. You have to keep on, asking questions. Why is this happening and why is it not happening? So, but I find that I think in Malawi we are getting there. I would say we're going leaps and bounds, because now we also have the number of judges, women judges, that are on the bench are very, very progressive. When I was still a judge, and I thank God for this, I came up with an organization called Women Judges Association of Malawi, which is still going on at the moment. And we go into the villages to educate the women. And we see, because every time a case came before us, you would wince when evidence is being given and the woman doesn't know what type of evidence to give. And so we said, well, we need to take the courts to the people. That's what, made us form this organization that is now going on. And so the women judges are very jealous about the rights that the women have now, gained, and they don't want to lose them. So I think that's also an added advantage for us, which I don't know whether it's the same here or not. Maybe we need to look at that and see, do we have gatekeepers? Do we have some people that will say, this will not change as long as I'm... And this Women Judges Association, because of the way we've been conducting ourselves and the integrity of the organization, we now have male judges joining us. And we applaud that, yes. So women judges, and we always say in courts with men.
So as I've sort of talked with people and sort of, I told you I used to run an organization called Episcopalians for Global Reconciliation, and it was a while ago, but we were working on the Millennium Development Goals.
Yes.
And worked around the Episcopal Church. And what I found, and what I've still found, is primarily because of the way that Africa is portrayed in the American media. I found two things in people's sort of hardwired into their brains about Africa. First is people would put a broad brush and just say Africa like it was one place, instead of just incredibly diverse in culture, language, everything. And the second is it would almost always center on poverty. And when I've been blessed to be able to go to Malawi, South Africa, Ghana, Tanzania, South Sudan. I've seen incredible beauty. I've seen incredible power. I've never been to Malawi. I hope to come to Malawi soon. Brag on your country. Talk about the beauty of, what do you love most about Malawi? Tell us about Malawi.
Well, I could be here the whole day.
We got a couple more minutes.
Let me talk about the landscape first. Mm-hmm. Malawi is, I would say, the only country in the world that is endowed with natural beauty. Mm. It has a lake. We call the lake the Calendar Lake, because the lake is 366 miles long. It is 70 miles wide on the longest, so that's 366 days. 52 miles. I was thinking my kilometers. So 52 miles wide, that's the number of weeks in a year. Yep. 7 big rivers that pour into the lake, so that's the number of days in a week. And then we have one major river that flows out of the 1 year. So we call ourselves the land of the calendar year. Malawi is very beautiful, and the lake is the 3rd largest freshwater lake in Africa, the 9th deepest in the world, freshwater in the world. We have more than 2,000 species of fish in Lake Malawi, and that's the only lake in the world that has that number of species. Now, coming to its people, yes, we can be portrayed as being poor, but you will find the happiest people in Malawi. Even someone with a torn, the bums are out in the open, they are running, and many children don't have toys. They'll take the rim of a car or the rim of a bicycle and they are pedaling along, and they look dirty to you, but they are so happy. They have the widest smiles, and Malawian people always care for each other. That's why we are called the warm heart of Africa. We care. We look out for each other. It's just recently that we have started noticing things that are anti-Malawian. we've started noticing that the elderly are not being looked after. The sick are being, well, condemned even before they die. And this is a new thing that's happening in Malawi, and we cannot understand what's happening.
Is it influence from outside? Is it what do you think is causing that?
I think it's influence from outside. And I'll talk about another negative thing that happened to us. I think a few years ago, we had albinos being killed.
Say that again. You had
People with albinos.
albinos. Yeah. Okay, we have white skin.
Yeah, they were being killed. And we learned that evil from Tanzania because someone said their bones are what you can use to make money. They use magic to make money. Well, I don't know whether it's true or not, but a lot of innocent people with that skin have been killed. And it breaks my heart that someone would bring in something like that. And so, these are some of the things that are happening to us, which we never used to have before. We always used to look after our old ones. We don't have homes for the elderly like here, because the elderly always have a place in the home. We look after them until they die. They are part of the family.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, sure.
And actually, one of the things going back to the fresh water.
Yes.
Many people say over the next 50 years, fresh water will become one of the most valuable resources on the planet. We're already experiencing here in Southern California incredible water shortages. Malawi is positioned to be resource rich in this really important area. And so if you can manage, and it's like this is, I think about things that we in America can learn from you. If you can manage to share and administer that resource as the warm heart of Africa, and avoid the manipulation of it, then you will do the whole world such a great service and show us really what the heart of Malawi is. I want to open this up to you all and to questions and anything that you might have. Anything? Are you all just sort of stunned and in awe here? I've got one down here, and please say your name so Esme can know who you are.
My name is Patrick. I had a question. Does Malawi still have tribal courts as they did in the days of Kumuzubanda?
No, we abolished those.
Oh, that's what I wanted to know.
Okay. We abolished them in 1994.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Questions?
There's another one.
Oh, yeah. Hey, thanks. Good to see you.
My name is Dan. From looking at your country a little bit, it looks like you're composed of many different tribal groups, not one plural or majority group. Do you have any lessons in how those groups get along that might be beneficial here in America, where we seem to have some problems getting along?
That's a difficult one. But one of the things that was done during the time of Kamuzubanda, as my brother Patrick has pointed out, there was a creation of what we used to call national language. The national language was supposed to unify us all together, and it was called Chichewa. Now, wherever you go in Malawi, although now it's no longer the national language, wherever you go in Malawi, you can speak that language and everyone will understand. But the downside of it is that you are now, it's like you are lifting one language over others, because a language also speaks a lot about the culture of the people. So it's also like you're imposing the culture of the Chewas on everybody else. So now people have been allowed to use their own languages in their places where they are. The other thing was, which I think one good thing that Dr. Banda did for us, apart from everything else, he used to say, "You are all Malawians." And so it doesn't matter whether you're from the north, the south, or wherever. we are all Malawians and we are going to build ourselves as Malawians. So that, I think, was with us for a long time, and it helped us to bond together. The tribal differences are still there. Now I'm even noticing that I think they are raising their ugly heads again, because I think the last 2 elections noticed that now voting seems to be alongside tribal bases or regional bases, which it's very, very unfortunate for a small country like Malawi. But I hope that we'll be able to unite again.
But,
Thank you.
Sandy will have a question in a second. Just talk to us a little, Lisa, a small country like Malawi. How big is Malawi?
I can't remember the actual. Okay, Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
If you turn Nashville is that
Or
way.
Tennessee.
Tennessee,
Tennessee, yeah.
is that way.
Yeah.
You just put it that way.
Okay.
That's the same.
Yeah.
That's the same size of Malawi.
Okay, that's an incredibly helpful image for Americans. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Sandy, here.
Yeah, it's great to give Americans local references. As far as the common language, maybe it's a little bit like Arabic. We have modern standard Arabic, and we have everybody who speaks modern standard Arabic speaks a local dialect. It just provides a way for commerce and exchange and for understanding each other.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask a little bit more difficult question, I think, and it's not about now, but it's about the future and your thoughts about the future. There's considerable press about the status of LGBT people within Malawi, and not getting into current issues, but do you see some resolution of the relationship between LGBT people and the ordinary people of Malawi? And part of this is part of economic development. When everyone is small farmers and less educated, that's a problem. As people become more educated, LGBT people tend to become more respected and more accepted within the society.
Let me say, we have them in Malawi, and they are free to practice their beliefs. The law has not yet been changed, but I think there are efforts to have that changed. As of now, I don't know whether you followed the case of, it happened so many years ago. There was a case in Malawi of 2 young men who decided to get married, and they were imprisoned. But after some time, they were released. It has been said that they can be allowed to practice what they believe without, being persecuted, because most are persecuted. So I would say that I think that's a little progressive, because no one is now persecuting anyone with, that inclination. So people are free. It is now just left to change the law. But I'll say this, and I want to be very candid. There has been a lot of pushback, because traditionally, and because we are still, well, let me say, literacy rate is about 67%. So most people are still traditionally bound. People still think traditional. And so people don't want to move from their traditional beliefs to embrace, to accept, what is happening. I don't know whether it's the place of the church. I don't know whether it's the influence of the church or it is the influence of just tradition. Mostly in Malawi, we have Christians and Muslims, and both societies seem to be anti-LGBT. But as long as people are allowed to practice what they believe, I believe maybe that's where the departure point is. Thank you.
I actually have a question, and then I'll come on over to you, John. I know that you've only served during the Biden administration,
Yep.
but I'm sure you've talked to your predecessors. We concentrate on what an election is going to mean for our country, but it also has huge ripple effects around the world. As you understand it, what was the difference from a Malawian perspective of working with the Trump administration and working with the Biden administration?
Well, I came in during the Biden administration. I, honestly speaking, would not have a lot of authority to speak about the Trump administration, but the little that I know, making America great again has got its own implications, has got its own quote unquote limitations on what America can do for other countries, and especially for small countries like Malawi, and especially Africa. So maybe that's as far as I can say.
So, kind of following up on that, it's already been mentioned that, by the way, my name's John Armstrong. Yes, it's already been brought up that we have built-in views of things, like our built-in views of Africa, but we also have built-in views of China, England, whatever. Lately, the Chinese Silk Road, the Chinese have been coming into Africa and creating more influence. I'm kind of curious how that occurs to you. Do you see that as beneficial to Africa or to Malawi in particular? Do you see that there's any tendency to create a economic center for all of Africa, sort of like the EU, that might protect your rights? And that's the question.
That's a very difficult one, but because of its implications. I think that when we deal with America, we have a lot of processes to do that America has put in place, and rightly so. And these processes sometimes are seen as blocks in the African context, because you have to do a lot of due diligence. America looks at accountability. America looks at transparency. America looks at democracy. Where are we on all these gauges? With China, I think it's a little different. China comes in and says, here is the loan. And if you are, in need of the loan, you take it. They may not look at these same processes that America looks at. So that's the, I would say, the difference. It's good to be accountable. It's good to be transparent, because the loans that we are getting have got a long implication on the future of our countries. So I think that's the best maybe that I can say for the time being. Yeah, that it really depends on the processes that are put in place in order to get a loan or in order to get some help from America. But America has been our friend for a long time. Thank you.
Yes, you talked about the tremendous progress in women's rights and role in the overall society. What do you see as the remaining obstacles, the main things that need further change to advance that, and perhaps more than women, other areas of society that need advance? And you've talked about the role of tradition, but what are the obstacles, what are the tools you plan on using to overcome those?
Thank you so much. I think when we look at the challenges, firstly, education is, and when I talk about education, I'm not just talking about class education, but I'm talking at both formal and informal education. If a woman is going to make strides in developing herself, she needs to know maybe how to use her phone, because like lately we have had lessons being given to the women in the villages, and they're using the phone. A young man called Jack Farren has come to Malawi, to Rwanda, and I think a number of African countries. And he is he has a website, and the women must open their phones to learn what he is talking about, agriculture. And this is really very, very good initiative that he has started. But if the women don't know how to use the phone, they cannot progress. So they need to be taught how to use the phone, how to get access to the lessons that are being taught, and also how to count their money, how to use their money, how to, whilst you are empowering them, but if they get the money and they just use it on anything, it will not help them. There's a lot of potential in Malawi, which needs to be unlocked, which now I find that Ida is doing, because she is also planting trees with them. And it's the women that are planting the trees. They are creating nurseries. I think as of last year, she had planted something like 800,000 trees. Now, Malawi uses a lot of firewood because we don't have a lot of energy. We don't have gas that they can use. Gas, I'm using gas cookers, gas stoves. So we still use a lot of firewood, we still use a lot of charcoal. They are putting back into their community, they are putting back into their society. She is taking them through the informal sector on how to harvest, maybe twice a year, irrigation. We have lots of water. Almost the whole of Malawi has got water. So she is taking them through irrigated farming. That's education, empowering them. And if everyone in Malawi can begin to do that, they are going to have food. They're going to have surplus to sell. They will have that surplus. When they sell it, it's going to help them to build better lives. Now, on the formal education, I think the younger ones need to go through the formal education system. But the one thing that I have, or a challenge, is that we don't have as many colleges as you have here, universities. So the top is very narrow. Only a few people can go through that. Unless Malawi creates more what I would call community colleges, where people can go and learn skills, then we are beginning to make a difference. So those community colleges, which we have, but I think we need to have more, so that those that are going through the formal sector can have opportunities of going through tertiary education. So that's my view. Thank you.
Yeah. So we're going to, can you stick around another maybe 10 or 12 minutes?
Yes.
We're going to, everyone turn and wave to the camera. We're going to say goodbye to everyone who's been participating with us online. So Keith can get over to set up the live stream for the 10 o'clock service. But we're going to keep going in here for just a few more minutes. So Crystal.
Hi, thank you. My name is Crystal Jones. Now, I know that these are many different countries in Africa, and Ghana is not at all like Malawi, but I was wondering, I know that there's a growing expat Black African American community in Ghana. Is there much of a expat African American community in Malawi, or is there a presence at all? And if there are, what does that look like? And if not, why do you think not?